Dehydration. You wake up, skip water, drink coffee, take your supplement, and wonder why you feel foggy instead of sharp. The supplement didn't fail, you just ran it on an empty tank. Most people start the day already mildly dehydrated, so the baseline is off before anything even kicks in. Brain function runs on flow. Neurons rely on fluid balance and blood circulation to move electrical signals and shuttle oxygen and nutrients into brain tissue. When hydration dips, even slightly, that system slows down. Not enough to crash, but enough to dull the response. Now add a supplement. Most of them increase activity, more signaling, more neurotransmitters, more metabolic demand. That means the brain needs tighter circulation, steady oxygen delivery, and consistent fluid movement to keep up. If hydration is low, it can't. So instead of clean focus, you get resistance, foggy thinking, light headaches, a stimulated feeling that doesn't translate into output. It feels like the supplement is doing something, but not what you wanted. In reality, it's just pushing a system that can't support the load. Caffeine usually makes this worse. Stack a supplement with coffee or an energy drink, and fluid loss creeps higher. If water intake doesn't rise with it, dehydration compounds quietly, blood flow loses efficiency, oxygen delivery slips, and performance follows. At that point, the issue isn't stimulation, it's movement. Hydration controls how everything travels through the brain. Oxygen, nutrients, neurotransmitters, it all depends on fluid. When that drops, everything slows with it, so the input goes up, but the system can't deliver. Sleep. You're averaging 6 hours, mainlining coffee by 9, and stacking a nootropic on top. Your brain isn't slow because it needs more stimulation. It's slow because it never finished recovering. Sleep is where the system recalibrates. Neurotransmitters rebalance. Energy stores refill. Waste gets cleared out of brain tissue. That's the maintenance window. Cut it short and you start the day already behind. Now layer in how most supplements work. They push signaling. Dopamine, acetylcholine, norepinephrine, the chemicals tied to focus, alertness, and drive. But sleep loss already disrupts those pathways. Dopamine drops. Reaction time slows. Attention gets harder to hold. So the supplement pushes into a drained system. That's why the effect feels inconsistent, not zero, just unstable. Instead of clean focus, you get spillover, jitters, irritability. That wired but tired state where your body is awake but your brain isn't cooperating. It feels like stimulation without direction. And there's a deeper layer. Sleep controls receptor sensitivity. When you're well rested, signals land cleanly, neurons respond, communication flows. When sleep is cut, those receptors become less responsive. Same signal, weaker response. So even a well-built supplement hits and barely registers, not because it stopped working, because the system stopped responding. Cortisol. This isn't a focus problem. It's a system stuck in threat mode. When stress stays elevated for weeks, a supplement doesn't sharpen focus. It adds stimulation to a nervous system that's already running hot. Cortisol in short bursts is useful. It boosts alertness, mobilizes energy, gets you moving. But stretched out over time, it starts interfering with the same systems you're trying to upgrade. Neurotransmitters lose stability. Dopamine becomes inconsistent. Serotonin shifts. Attention fragments. The brain stops operating in a controlled, focused state and leans reactive, scanning, responding, staying on edge. Then the supplement comes in and pushes harder. Most nootropics increase signaling or stimulate alertness pathways. But if cortisol is already elevated, that added push doesn't feel like clarity. It feels like pressure, restlessness, jitters, racing thoughts that don't convert into output. It looks like the supplement is the issue. It's not. It's stacking stimulation onto a system that never powered down. There's also a structural shift happening. Chronic stress redirects blood flow. More resources go to survival circuits, threat detection, emotional processing. Less goes to the prefrontal cortex, the part responsible for focus, planning, and decision-making. That's the exact area you're trying to enhance. So the chemistry might still be working. But the brain has different priorities now. It's not trying to perform, it's trying to cope. Diet. You spent $40 on a nootropic stack. You're eating gas station food and skipping meals, and you can't figure out why nothing's working. Most people treat supplements like they're the source. They're not. They're a nudge. The actual machinery runs on raw materials, and those come from food. Neurotransmitters don't arrive pre-built inside a capsule. Your brain has to assemble them. Dopamine, serotonin, acetylcholine, all built from amino acids like tyrosine and tryptophan. No protein, no parts, no production. So the supplement pushes and nothing happens. Not because it failed, because there's nothing to push. Then you stack unstable fuel on top. Highly processed food floods glucose in fast, insulin drags it back down, and now your brain is riding a constant spike crash loop. Focus drops, mood swings, energy disappears. The brain isn't optimizing, it's stabilizing. So again, the supplement doesn't work. No, the system never had stable input to begin with. Now zoom out to structure. Your brain is mostly fat. Literally. Membranes, synapses, signaling speed, all depend on fatty acids, especially omega-3s. Low or unbalanced fats don't just slow things down, they degrade communication quality. That nootropic boost you expected, it's trying to run on bad wiring. And then the silent bottlenecks: magnesium, zinc, B vitamins. These aren't flashy, but they run the reactions underneath everything. Low levels don't crash the system, they quietly throttle it. Slower signals, lower output, blunted response. At that point, the supplement isn't ineffective, it's outmatched. You didn't give the brain more power, you gave it a button connected to nothing. Movement. You've been at your desk for 5 hours, you haven't moved. You take your supplement and wait for focus to arrive, but it doesn't. That's not a supplement problem, that's a circulation problem. Hours of sitting slow the circulation that carries oxygen and nutrients to your brain, and no supplement fixes delivery through a sluggish supply line. No movement, no flow boost, just screens and stillness. Your brain runs on constant delivery. Oxygen, glucose, amino acids, everything it needs arrives through blood flow. When movement stays low, circulation drops just enough to matter. Not a crash, just a quiet decline. Focus fades faster. Mental fatigue shows up earlier. Thinking feels heavier. Then you add a supplement. Most nootropics increase activity, more signaling, more neurotransmitter demand, more metabolic load. The brain steps on the gas, but the supply line hasn't changed. Blood flow is still slow. Resources still arrive late, so the system tries to do more, but with the same limited input. That's where things feel off. A bit of stimulation, no real lift in clarity, sometimes even tension headaches or that strange split, mentally on, physically drained. It's not a chemistry issue, it's a delivery problem. Movement fixes this fast. Circulation increases, oxygen delivery improves. The brain gets what it needs, when it needs it. You also trigger BDNF, a signal that strengthens communication between neurons and makes the system more responsive. Now the same supplement lands differently, because the system is actually ready to use it. Without movement, you're not enhancing performance. You're trying to accelerate something that's still idling. Wrong dosing. You buy a supplement with 17 ingredients on the label. It looks impressive, but buried in the fine print is a proprietary blend, and nobody's telling you that most of those ingredients are dosed so low they wouldn't move a needle on anything. Most brain supplements only work inside a narrow range. Too low and the brain barely notices. Too high and performance can actually drop. In both cases, the result feels identical. Nothing useful happens, and most people blame the ingredient instead of the amount. Low dosing is the more common problem. Companies pack labels with ingredient lists that look comprehensive but contain amounts too small to do anything meaningful. Neurotransmitter activity may technically shift, but the change never translates into noticeable focus or mental energy. The brain received a signal, just not a strong enough one. The opposite problem is just as real. Most nootropics follow a bell curve. There's a useful middle range, and once the dose climbs past it, performance drops. Instead of clean focus, you get wired and scattered. Headaches show up. Irritability creeps in. The brain is being pushed harder than it needs to be. Timing cuts into this too. Some compounds work better earlier in the day when alertness systems are already active. Others need food or specific nutrients to absorb properly. Take them at the wrong time and the window closes before the compound even lands. Always check the clinical research dose before assuming a supplement doesn't work. And be skeptical of proprietary blends. If the label won't tell you how much of each ingredient you're getting, there's usually a reason for that. Deficiency. Your doctor runs a standard panel. Everything comes back normal, but you're still foggy, still unmotivated, still can't string 3 hours of focused work together. What they didn't check was whether your brain has the raw materials to actually run. Your brain executes thousands of chemical reactions every second. Neurotransmitters get built, signals fire between neurons, energy gets produced inside brain cells. But those reactions depend on cofactors, small helper nutrients that make the chemistry possible in the first place. Without them, the reactions slow down. Magnesium regulates nerve signaling. B vitamins power cellular energy production. Zinc and iron are directly involved in building dopamine. These aren't optional support nutrients. They're the difference between a brain that runs and one that crawls. When one runs low, the whole system loses efficiency, so a nootropic comes in and pushes harder. Signals increase, demand goes up, but the machinery behind it is still missing pieces. The result isn't a boost, it's pressure on an already strained system. Headaches show up. Irritability creeps in. The supplement feels like it's making things worse instead of better. That's not a bad ingredient. That's a deficiency the supplement exposed. Brain fog, low motivation, mental fatigue, these are often deficiency symptoms people mistake for a focus problem. They reach for cognitive enhancers hoping to push through. But you can't stimulate your way out of a shortage. Fix the missing pieces first, then the supplement actually has something to work with. Consistency. You tried it for 3 days, felt nothing, and moved on to the next one. Then that one. Then the one after that. Your supplement graveyard keeps growing, but the problem was never the ingredient. It was the timeline. Most supplements don't work like painkillers. They don't flip a switch in 30 minutes. They work by gradually adjusting neurotransmitter levels, receptor sensitivity, and enzyme activity over time. That process requires repetition. Neural systems respond to patterns. When a compound shows up consistently, the brain slowly adjusts how receptors respond, how enzymes regulate neurotransmitters, and how signals move between neurons. When the signal is inconsistent, the brain never adapts, so the effect feels random. Some days a small shift, other days nothing. It looks like the supplement is unreliable, but what's actually happening is the brain never received a stable enough pattern to respond to. You pulled the plug before the system had time to rewire. Inconsistent use makes side effects worse too. Each dose lands like a sudden spike because the nervous system hasn't adjusted yet. Headaches, restlessness, that slightly wired feeling that never settles into anything useful. Consistency smooths all of that out. Same signal, same time, same conditions. And the brain gradually normalizes the response until the stimulation becomes clean and predictable. Most people quit right before that window opens. Fix any one of these, and the supplement you already have starts working differently. Fix all of them, and you're not chasing a cognitive edge anymore. You've built the conditions for one. Don't stop here. The next video is already waiting.